welcome. I'm going to begin today's episode with reading A New Earth, and perhaps if anything comes up afterwards that's going on with me that I would like to share, then that can happen at the end. So the last few passages have been on roles, and specifically parent roles as well. And we are moving on to recognizing your child. So it's continuing the theme for the last few passages. You are a human being. What does that mean? Mastery of life is not a question of control, but of finding a balance between human and being. Mother, father, husband, wife, young, old, the roles you play, the functions you fulfill, whatever you do, all that belongs to the human dimension. It has its place and needs to be honoured, but in itself it is not enough for a fulfilled, truly meaningful relationship or life. Human alone is never enough, no matter how hard you try or what you achieve. Then there is being. It is found in the still, alert presence of consciousness itself, the consciousness that you are. Human is form. Being is formless. Human and being are not separate, but interwoven. In the human dimension, you are unquestionably superior to your child. You are bigger, stronger, know more, can do more. If that dimension is all you know, you will feel superior to your child, if only unconsciously. And you will make your child feel inferior, if only unconsciously. There is no equality between you and your child, because there is only form in your relationship, and in form you are of course not equal. You may love your child, but your love will be human only, that is to say, conditional, possessive, intermittent. Only beyond form, in being, are you equal, and only when you find the formless dimension in yourself can there be true love in that relationship. The presence that you are, the timeless I am, recognizes itself in another, and the other, the child in this case, feels loved, that is to say, recognized. To love is to recognize yourself in another. The other's otherness then stands revealed as an illusion pertaining to the purely human realm, the realm of form. The longing for love that is in every child is the longing to be recognized, not on the level of form, but on the level of being. If parents honor only the human dimension of the child, but neglect being, the child will sense that the relationship is unfulfilled, that something absolutely vital is missing, and there will be a build-up of pain in the child and sometimes unconscious resentment towards the parents. Why don't you recognize me? This is what the pain or resentment seems to be saying. When another recognizes you, that recognition draws the dimension of being more fully into this world through both of you. That is the love that redeems the world. I have been speaking of this with specific reference to the relationship with your child, but it equally applies, of course, to all relationships. It has been said, God is love, but that is not absolutely correct. God is the one life in and beyond the countless forms of life. Love implies duality, lover and beloved, subject and object. So love is the recognition of oneness in the world of duality. This is the birth of God into the world of form. Love makes the world less worldly, less dense, more transparent to the divine dimension, the light of consciousness itself. So before beginning the next passage, I thought we could just take a minute or so of just reflecting and absorbing what has just been read. And it is good to note that while reading this, there's nothing to remember and follow in a instructive sense. It's to almost absorb in your awareness, to allow it to pass through your awareness and to understand the signposts that are being given. And I'll just reread part of the passage that talks about the essence of love, where when another recognizes you, that recognition draws the dimension of being more fully into this world through both of you. That is the love that redeems the world. So this passage is titled Giving Up Role-Playing. To do whatever is required of you in any situation without it becoming a role that you identify with, is an essential lesson in the art of living that each one of us is here to learn. You become most powerful in whatever you do if the action is performed for its own sake rather than as a means to protect, embrace, or conform to your role identity. Every role is a fictitious sense of self, and through it, everything becomes personalized and thus corrupted and distorted by the mind-made little me, and whatever role it happens to be playing. Most of the people who are in positions of power in this world, such as politicians, TV personalities, business as well as religious leaders, are completely identified with their role, with a few notable exceptions. They may be considered VIPs, but they are no more than unconscious players in the egoic game, a game that looks so important, yet is ultimately devoid of true purpose. It is, in the words of Shakespeare, a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. Amazingly, Shakespeare arrived at this conclusion without having the benefit of television. If the egoic earth drama has any purpose at all, it is an indirect one. It creates more and more suffering on the planet, and suffering, although largely ego-created, is in the end also ego-destructive. It is the fire in which the ego burns itself up. In a world of role-playing personalities, those few people who don't project a mind-made image, and there are some even on TV, in the media and the business world, but function from the deeper core of their being. Those who do not attempt to appear more than they are, but are simply themselves, stand out as remarkable, and are the only ones who truly make a difference in this world. They are the bringers of the new consciousness. Whatever they do becomes empowered because it is in alignment with the purpose of the whole. Their influence, however, goes far beyond what they do, far beyond their function. Their mere presence, simple, natural, unassuming, has a transformational effect on whoever they come into contact with. When you don't play roles, it means there is no self, ego, in what you do. There is no secondary agenda, protection or strengthening of yourself. As a result, your actions have far greater power. You are totally focused on the situation. You become one with it. You don't try to be anybody in particular. You are most powerful, most effective when you are completely yourself. But don't try to be yourself. That's another role. It's called natural, spontaneous me. As soon as you are trying to be this or that, you are playing a role. Just be yourself is good advice, but it can also be misleading. The mind will come in and say, let's see, how can I be myself? Then the mind will develop some kind of strategy how to be myself, another role. How can I be myself is, in fact, the wrong question. It implies you have to do something to be yourself. But how doesn't apply here, because you are yourself already. Just stop adding unnecessary baggage to who you are, to who you already are. But I don't know who I am. I don't know what it means to be myself. If you can be absolutely comfortable with not knowing who you are, then what's left is who you are, the being behind the human, a field of pure potentiality rather than something that is already defined. Give up defining yourself, to yourself or to others. You won't die. You will come to life. And don't be concerned with how others define you. When they define you, they are limiting themselves, so it's their problem. Whenever you interact with people, don't be there primarily as a function or a role, but as a field of conscious presence. Why does the ego play roles? Because of one unexamined assumption, one fundamental error, one unconscious thought. That thought is, I am not enough. Other unconscious thoughts follow. I need to play a role in order to get what I need to be fully myself. I need to get more so that I can be more. But you cannot be more than you are, because underneath your physical and psychological form, you are one with life itself, one with being. In form, you are and will always be inferior to some, superior to others. In essence, you are neither inferior nor superior to anyone. True self-esteem and true humility arise out of that realization. In the eyes of the ego, self-esteem and humility are contradictory. In truth, they are one and the same. So, I'm going to leave the reading at the end of this passage here. It feels like it's quite a lot to reflect upon, especially this last chapter in being yourself. As I was reading this, it really hit close to home in how perhaps I have been playing roles. The role of being kind, or the role of being understanding, being the good person. And perhaps that's something for me to address. And it's important to, as it says in this passage, not to give this to the mind. By giving it to the mind, the mind will, it says here, it will take it as almost a strategy to be yourself. It will try and figure out how to be yourself. And Eckhart is saying here the how doesn't apply, because you are yourself already. It's almost a surrender to who you are. And it says here to give up defining yourself to yourself or to others. And it feels the mind can be very, very cunning. It can even come in and define yourself as the one who doesn't define itself. Even that can be a role. The one who is free, the one who is spiritual. And I find this is perhaps the role I've been playing, when interacting with people. It feels like it can be incredibly subtle where a role comes in. And Eckhart quotes a thought that the mind may have: "But I don't know who I am. I don't know what it means to be myself." And he says after this, if you can be absolutely comfortable with not knowing who you are, then what's left is who you are. So it's in the not knowing. And the not knowing is the now. Knowing often is, as I understand it here, knowing is something that's rehearsed. Is that you're reading from a script, you're playing the role, the known role, the role that is known to the mind. But in the not knowing, there's a freshness there. And what is fresh? It's the present moment, coming from awareness of the present moment. The place of no condition, the place of not knowing, the unknown. And again, it's not playing the role of being in awareness. It is just the simple recognizing of being, the seeing of the present moment, which is a non-doing. Another way it could be put is awareness of being aware, or aware of awareness, whatever way works for you. And in this awareness, you are neither inferior nor superior to anyone. And that often comes in when roles are being played. It may not be consciously recognized with the mind. The mind may not actively say, "I feel superior to you," but it's almost as if it's always one or the other. The mind may feel that way. Whether it's you know more than this person, or there's some sort of unconscious measurement done using an infinite spectrum of metrics, whether it's stronger than this person, more understanding than this person. It's all a function and it's being carried out. So this really relates to a recent life situation that I'm going through, where I've recently communicated to somebody in my life, and it's very easy to see that this communication was given from a role that I was playing. The role of the little me. And without going into sort of the personal details of this situation or communication, it's often quite obvious and clear if you were to reread or to recall a communication that you know happened in ego or in a role. It's very easy to see this now. And I can already note the words used to describe myself as it can convey an inferior message there, that I'm inferior. And I think there was something in the passage that relates to this as well, in regards to almost speaking the truth. Not sure where that is in the passage, but it feels like when you're playing a role, often it's very easy to miss the mark of what you're trying to communicate. It's very easy for other influences or thoughts to come in and colour what is wanting to be said. But speaking from awareness, speaking from a non-role, a place of not knowing, it's almost revelation. You're uncovering the truth. There's a directness to it, a cleanness to it, where the words you speak are heard and digested immediately, and there's a power in that. And it almost feels like the awareness in you is coloured in the words. It carries across, and is that awareness it transfers into the other person. It may not always be this way, depending on how it's received and, of course, how aware or present the other person is, but in some maybe very minute way, the presence carries into the words and is received. And it's very easy to look at this communication that I sent, and it was almost emotional communication, a very personal, intimate or delicate communication. And just by reading this chapter, I do my best not to judge and give this to the mind, which will criticize and tear that apart. But it's very just on observation. It's clear that the communication is it's filled with emotion and instability there, inferior. It's filled with a neediness, the little me, in the inferiority. It's so clear now to see that. And maybe as an exercise, I may do this myself, is I may from this place rewrite this communication. If I was to communicate this to them now from this place, what would I say? And this could be an exercise for you if there's an example of where you've played a role. And it doesn't have to be written down, but maybe it can be, you can almost replay this and see what could have been done or said from a place of awareness. Not something that has to be remembered, so the next time you see them you're going to say, rehearse what's being said, but maybe just as an exercise for this moment. If there's a conversation or an interaction or a place where you've played a role and you think, how would that be framed in this moment if you were to press the play button and you were to respond to this situation? What would be said now? What would be done? And I'm not sure if this would perhaps heal, or I don't know if rectify is the right word, because of course what's been done is has to be accepted, because it's done. It can't be rewritten in that way. Perhaps it's a good way to carry out this, I was about to say this practice, but it's almost a non-practice, but it may be a good way to carry this out on the back of reading this passage. Okay. It feels like it was a very informative read for this one for today, and I hope it was informative and helpful for you as well. Okay, thank you for joining me for this episode, and I wish you well in this present moment, and I hope to see you again very soon. Take care.